This video is intended for the Stetson University DuPont Ball Innovation Lab. In this video we're going to be focusing on 123D design software from Autodesk. We're going to be going over pretty much the basic interface and some of the ways to kind of start your 3D models. We could see from here that we got a toolbar up top, and then we have a toolbar off to the right, and a little navigation cube in the top right. Let's start off by going over the navigation cube. Right now we're in a 3/4 view, but we do have names on each side of the cube that designate the side that you're on. For instance, front, if you click on front, it will go to the exact front facing portion of that plane. If you click some of the arrows like on top, it will go to 90-degree pivots to the next surface. In this case that's top, then it goes to back, then it goes bottom, and then you can go right back up to top. You can go to right. You can also use the arrows in the top right to go at 90-degree pivots as well. Let's get back to the front though, and if you need to get back to the 3/4 view, you can always hit the home button, and that returns you to the original 3/4 view that you started off when you open the program. You can also grab different types of corners and orbit it that way across the 3 axes. So that's the navigation cube over there, so you can get your view on whatever it is you're working on. On the top we have transform. We're going to use that a lot. We're also going to use primitives a lot to create our basic shapes. We might use a little bit of the spleen tools over here. Not too much of these. These are actually on a sub menu when you access certain objects on the 3D plane. Pattern, you might find yourself doing that a little bit. Let's say like a circular pattern, maybe when you're working with a gear and you want to get all the different gears at certain intervals around a circular base shape. Grouping, you can use that to kind of group some items together so that they kind of remain together, maybe even move together simultaneously for the moment. Combine, that's another one you'll be using a lot. Merge, subtract, intersect, we'll go over 2 or 3 of these. And then measure, you'll be using that to a good degree. Text, only if your project requires it. That's actually not too bad either. So pretty much this, a little bit of this, and then this tool definitely will be used the most. Off to the right, you can navigate this 3D plane using these 3 top navigational tools here. If you're on a laptop, you can use your trackpad and then click and then turn this way and that way, but getting pan and zoom to work without a mouse on a trackpad is not as easy. I have a mouse that has a center scroll wheel, so pretty much I can use the right click and I can orbit in 3 different axes. I can use that scroll wheel. If I click down on it, it becomes the pan, so I can move really quickly. And the scroll wheel also acts as a zoom in and a zoom out. But if you do not have a scroll wheeled mouse, you can also click here and the mouse turns into a pan tool. You can do orbit. If you click within the circle, you can do pretty much a 3-way axis orbit. If you click on the orbit tool outside the circle, you pretty much can do it on one plane of turning. Yeah, pretty much that's all you do. And zoom. Click on the zoom tool, go in and out of the viewport. So I'm going to click on this, then I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to return back to my regular mouse pointer. These other icons down here, I'm not going to go over them. If you want to play around with them at your leisure, you'll find out what they do. They're not really necessary for starting off. Let's start off with a box. As you can see, I've clicked a box, but it is not set on the 3D plane just yet. We have some measurements down in the dialog box at the bottom of the center screen, and you can change those measurements as you see fit before clicking. If I clicked right now, it would just be the regular 20 millimeters box. But I can change it. I can go 30 there, hit tab, you can move over to the next field. You do 70, then do 40, and then when you click, it retains those dimensions that you just entered. Let's see what we got here. So if I click on this object, now is where it gets interesting. We had the top toolbar, the right toolbar, But now we have this bottom toolbar. When you actually select something, you can see the edges are actually highlighting, or the faces are highlighting. The edges do too, and I'll go over that in just a moment. But for right now, we have this submenu here where these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, almost 6 icons to the right you're not going to really use. We're going to focus on 1, 2, 3, the first 3. One of the most useful ones is the first one, which is transforming. So you can transform your object by movement and by rotation. The arrows represent movement in that one axis direction. So this one, you can move that way, up arrow that way, and you can use this one that is pointing away from me to go this way along that axis. The degrees, rotation degrees, are represented by the circles on all 3 planes. So if I click here and I, instead of manually putting something in, it'll give you a preview too before you actually commit to it. So if I want to move that by 20 degrees, I can do that. I can backspace that, go 90, and you can see it holds true to that. And when I press enter, it keeps that degree transformation. You could also do that, let's go to move again, with moving on the axes. So if you click on the certain arrow that you want of the direction, you'll see this also pops up, and you can put in how many spaces you want to move. If you don't like the direction it's going, but that's how many millimeters you think you need to move, you could put negative in front of it and it will move it the opposite direction. So just keep that in mind too with your move controls. As it's still selected, you can see that it's still selected because of the green highlight around the entire object. Let's go to Smart Scale, and you can see right here the dimensions I put in earlier, 30, 40, and 70, are still there. So when you do it that first time, you're not solidified into those measurements. You can change them on the fly as you see fit. So if this was too high, I want to make it half that. Just do 35, press enter, and now it did that. To solidify your changes, just hit the green check mark for exit mode, and you're good. And then it will keep that measurement. You can see right now it's kind of floating above the 3D plane. If you hit the D key, it will move the object that is selected down to the 3D plane, making it flat. I can hit it right now, it's not doing anything, but once I select the object and hit the D key, you can see it just pasted itself to the 3D plane. Let's do this. Scale is the last one we're going to be using a lot of. Factor is 1, so just think of 1 as 100%, and you can either go 0.5 or 50%, or multiply it higher just to go by factors of 100%. So if I wanted to double, I could do 2, that would be 200%. Let's actually do that. You could do 2.5, and it makes it even larger, and then I hit enter, and then that's that. I can select the object again, hit D, and you can see it just put it back up on the 3D plane. Scale, you can also do non-uniform, so you can manipulate every axis, of axis measurement that you have. So if I didn't like the Z factor being too high, I can do that by 0.5, and you can see that's working out just fine. And hit D again, get it down there, and let's see what else we can do. So when the whole object is highlighted, you get this type of menu. However, you also have faces, edges, and vertexes. A face, if you click on it, you can see I can manipulate it now with a different set of tools. You got tweak, press, and shell. Press, pull, and shell. Some of these are repeated, like I said, from up here, which is right here. Press, tweak, shell. And that's what you can do with this face. Those are the things only allowed to be done to manipulate that face. Otherwise, you do have edges. You can see right here it changes to a darker border color of black. So if you just click on that, now you have a different set of submenu items that you can use to manipulate that edge. And then you also have a circle that goes around the vertexes when your mouse is close to that vertex point. And we only have one type of manipulation that we could do to that vertex. But yeah, that's pretty much how you can select I guess you would say sub-shapes of the actual shape that you're working with. Let's see, what else can we do? Let's do a sphere really quick. As you see, the sphere, I could change it before I set it down. Let's just do 20, and I'm going to click. So we have a 20 radius sphere, which means that if the radius is that way, that it should be, yeah, diameter is 40, as we see there in all 3 dimensions, 40, 40, 40. go into other ones, you can go into a cylinder. It gives you more options than a sphere, but less options than a rectangle. 10, you could also tab and go 50. Yep, and just click that in place. So that's how you start putting objects down on a 3D plane. If you needed to go ahead and make cut something out, you could take this, you can move it along. Let's move this around here. Move it along this axis, and you can see it's pretty much in there, inside that other object. What we could do is, let's say we want to make it centered. You can select both objects. You can see that selected and this is selected. And we'll just go here and use a line. We've used move and transform, this and this. That is what's on the sub menu down here. But here's another one which is called align, which is pretty nifty. You have different ways that you can line two objects that are close to each other. You can do it on the, I guess this would be the z-axis, x and y. But when you hover over certain parts, you can see that it does a preview of how it feels that it will align the objects together. Like right now you hardly see a movement at all right there, but if I click it, it is centering it. But as you can see, it's kind of off center from the top to the bottom. So if I hover here, you can see it just moved that slight yellowish representation of that cylinder to the very center of that rectangle. As did it, if you click it, it actually moves it right there. And that'll be it for right now. I'm just going to hit enter or the exit button. And there's still two objects. It did not combine it. This is where we're going to use this portion of the top menu. We're going to do a subtract here, so we're going to take this cylinder and completely get it out of, we're going to cut it out of the larger rectangle. So target solid mesh, I believe this would be this. It would be the one where we're going to use as a cutting tool. And the source solid mesh, it goes to the next one, will be the rectangle. And once you press enter, nope, that was backwards. Let's do that again. So target will be what you're going to keep, and the source solid mesh will be what is going to be the cutting tool. Press enter, and there we go. There's a hole right down the center. And so that's actually one object. So the cylinder no longer exists. It got cut out of there, and now you're left with one object that was used in operation to pretty much create this. Use two shapes to create one specific shape. You could do the same with this too. Let's see if we're going to move this over. We just wanted half a cylinder, half a sphere, one hemisphere. We do that as well. Let's say subtract. We want to keep this, and then we use this large object as a cutting tool. Press enter, and you see right now I just cut it in half. Now we could also combine different shapes. Let me go. Oh, if you want to go back, you could also use these buttons right here, forward and back. So we can do undo, undo a couple times, redo, and then get this back, and then we could try to place this object on top of this cylinder, which is a nifty. We do have a tool somewhere around here. Let's see, where was that? Oh, I don't think that's it. Okay, if not, we'll just do this. And move it over. Move that back. Move it higher. Sometimes when you move around, you get a better idea of where your objects are in relation to each other. And in this case, I'm going to select both. So I'm going to shift click the cylinder as well. Go back here, go to align. I'm going to align it in two different ways, which will be this way and this way. I don't want to align it top to bottom because, as you can see, if I even go over this, it'll put them straight in the middle of each other, and I kind of want that resting on top. So I'm not going to click anything along this line. I'm going to hit exit mode, and you can see they're two separate objects. Based on the highlighting it does, the cylinder goes into the sphere and the sphere goes into the cylinder. But if we wanted to make it one object, we could combine, merge, click on one, click on the other, and just hit enter. And now we click on it, it's all highlighted as one. There are actually not two objects, just one object. That's how you use the combine feature. Measurement tool, text, those are all pretty much defined. Well, it's a tool when you need it. Measurement is. Text is also a tool when you need it, depending on the project. And you could look that up in different types of tutorials that are related to this. But this tutorial was just to get you familiar with the main tools that you will be using. Once again, if I hit home, it goes there, and then that's pretty much it. For saving, you could click the top icon, click save to my projects or to my computer. If you go to my projects, we'll try to have you sign in. You can create a sign in and save it to a cloud version. I think that might cost some money, or it might be free up to a point, but if you save to my computer, it saves locally, and that way you can just open it up whenever you have from your local computer. If you wanted to finish up a model that you made and export it so that you can print it, you'd want to export as 3D and do STL. You'd want to choose Fine and export as ASC2. If it was, you'd probably want the model to be 1. You see how it says combine objects? That's because it's available because there are multiple objects here. There are 2 on the back, on the back 3D plane. But pretty much when you're printing it out, you want it to be 1 model, so you want to keep on using this merge feature. You want to merge all those objects together so that you have one solid piece, and then you can export it as STL. This combine objects will be grayed out because it will recognize that there's only one object, and then once again export as ACS2. You hit OK, and then you just save to where you need to. And that is pretty much it.